The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the distress message played for the third time. The holographic display showed a Naden diplomat, his translucent skin pulsing with fear chromophores, 4 of his 6 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. This is Ambassador Rel of Naden Colony Epsilon. We are under attack by Zor vessels. They have already breached our outer defenses. We have civilians, many younglings. Please, we request immediate assistance. We cannot static cut through before. The message replayed. High Counselor Ven raised her thin, reed-like appendages. The situation is unfortunate, but intervening against the Zor is too dangerous. Their energy-draining capabilities make them nearly unstoppable. The 23 representatives from the most powerful civilizations in the known galaxy shifted uncomfortably. None made eye contact with their peers. The Naden are a peaceful species, argued Counselor Pax, his gelatinous form rippling with emotion. They have no defensive capabilities. They joined our Galactic Union trusting in our protection. The colony is in the Outer Rim, countered Counselor Drell. Our nearest peacekeeping force would take 14 cycles to arrive. By then, it would be too late. Soft murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. The Zor were feared throughout the galaxy. Energy parasites evolved from the darkness between stars. They consumed the life force of organic beings and the power from technology alike. No species had successfully fought them in direct combat. What about evacuation? Asked a representative from the back. The Zor have surrounded the colony, Ven replied, projecting sensor data into the central display. No ship could reach the surface without being detected and drained. The chamber descended into resigned silence. Billions of light-years of evolution had produced civilizations that valued caution, diplomacy, and careful resource management. Direct confrontation with a superior predator species went against every survival instinct. There is one option we haven't considered, came a quiet voice. All eyes turned to Counselor Tam, representative of the Myth Collective. His gray-scaled skin seemed paler than usual. The humans. The word hung in the air like a curse. Several counselors visibly recoiled. The Deathworlders? Ven's voice was sharp with disbelief. You cannot be serious. I visited their homeworld once, Tam continued. Earth is a nightmare by our standards. Crushing gravity, extreme temperature variations, toxic atmosphere components, dangerous radiation levels from their star, and aggressive predators everywhere. The humans evolved there and thrived despite it all. They're unpredictable, snapped Counselor Drell. Violent. Their entry into galactic society was barely 3 decades ago, and they still struggle with our most basic societal norms. But they're also ingenious, Tam insisted. And they're the only species I know who might stand a chance against the Zor. Would they even help? Asked Pax. The Naden colony is nowhere near their territory. Tam's inner eyelids flickered in, what passed for a smile among his species. That's the most fascinating thing about humans. They often help without calculating benefit. It's irrational, but it's their way. High Counselor Ven's appendages drooped slightly in resignation. Make the call then. But I doubt even Deathworlders would rush to face the Zor. Tam nodded and moved to the communication console. As he prepared the transmission, he whispered too softly for others to hear. You don't know humans like I do. This is Captain Ellis of Earth Diplomatic Vessel Horizon. I'm patching you through to Fleet Admiral Lind. The council chamber remained silent as the human communication officer's image faded, replaced by an older human female with short gray hair and a face lined with what Tam recognized as experience rather than age. Galactic Council, she nodded, formally. This is Admiral Lind of the United Earth Fleet. I understand you have an emergency situation. High Counselor Ven stepped forward, her reed-like body swaying slightly. Admiral, we've received a distress call from Naden Colony Epsilon. They're under attack by Zor vessels. If the Admiral recognized the name of the fearsome energy predators, she gave no indication. What's the nature of the attack? Casualties? Defensive capabilities? The directness of human communication still startled many counselors. No formal greeting rituals, no political posturing, just immediate focus on the problem. The Naden have no meaningful defenses, Tam explained. They're peaceful researchers and agriculturalists. Their colony houses approximately 40,000 individuals, including many younglings. The Admiral's expression remained neutral, but something flickered in her eyes. Location and time frame? Ven transmitted the coordinates. The distress call came 9 hours ago. Our estimates suggest the colony may have already fallen. Admiral Lin turned to speak with someone off-screen, her voice too low to hear. When she faced the Council again, her decision was already made. We have 3 battle groups within range. They can reach the colony in 17 hours at emergency FTL. Several counselors exchanged glances of disbelief. No one had expected the humans to agree so readily, let alone commit multiple battle groups. Admiral, Counselor Drell's voice quavered slightly. Perhaps I should clarify. These are Zor attackers. They drain energy from ships and living beings alike. No conventional weapons. We're familiar with the Zor, Counselor, Lind interrupted. We've studied all known hostile species in our sector and beyond. But you've never faced them directly, Ven pressed. No species has survived direct engagement. The Admiral's lips thinned in what Tam recognized as a human expression of determination. Then we'll be the first. You risk your entire fleet, warned Drell. Admiral Lind leaned closer to the camera. Those colonists sent a distress call expecting someone to answer. Where I come from, we don't ignore calls for help. The council chamber fell silent again. The concept seemed alien to many present, risking resources without calculation of success, probability, or benefit. The fleet is mobilizing now, continued Lind. We'll update you when we reach the Needon colony. Lind out. As the transmission ended, conversation erupted across the chamber. They'll be slaughtered, Drell murmured. Or they might surprise us, countered Tam. Humans evolved on a planet where electrical storms can strike without warning. Their technology is designed with redundancies and protections that might help against energy-draining attacks. It's still suicide, insisted another counselor. Tam gazed at the empty communication display. During my time on Earth, I witnessed humans running into burning buildings to save strangers. They dive into turbulent waters to rescue drowning animals. They donate vital organs to keep others alive. Their behavior defies logical explanation. High Counselor Ven's appendages trembled slightly. You admire them. I'm fascinated by them, Tam corrected. They evolved in an environment that should have killed them 1,000 times over. Instead, it made them extraordinarily adaptable, and now they rush headlong toward the Zor, Ven sighed. Perhaps we were wrong to invite Deathworlders into galactic society. Tam's inner eyelids flickered in disagreement. Or perhaps, Counselor, that's exactly why we needed them. Captain Mira Pike stood on the bridge of the UEF Relentless, watching as her battle group prepared for emergency FTL jump. Around her, crew, members worked with practiced efficiency, faces set with determination rather than fear. All ships report ready, Captain, Commander Raj announced from the tactical station. Battle groups Phoenix and Orion have synchronized jump coordinates. Pike nodded. Commence countdown. 10 seconds to jump. On the main view screen, 19 human warships formed a precise formation. The largest rapid response force humanity had assembled since joining the galactic community. The Galactic Council seemed surprised we agreed to help, Raj commented quietly. Pike allowed herself a small smile. They still don't understand us, even after all these years. She remembered humanity's difficult entry into galactic society. When human explorers had first encountered alien civilizations, they'd been quarantined and classified as Deathworlders. Dangerous beings evolved from a planet so hostile that it produced inherently aggressive species. Earth's gravity, atmosphere, temperature variations, and background radiation levels were nightmarish by galactic standards. Humans had evolved to survive conditions that would kill most sentient species. Their bones were denser, their muscles stronger, their bodies able to withstand radiation levels that would be lethal to others. But beyond physical adaptations, humans possessed something else the galactic community found unnerving. An instinctive drive to help others, even at personal risk. Jump in 3, 2, 1, announced the navigation officer. Space twisted around them as 20 ships vanished into FTL. In the officer's mess 6 hours later, Pike studied the mission briefing with her command staff. The Zor are energy parasites, explained Science Officer Vega, displaying holographic imagery. They drain power from technology and living beings alike. Conventional energy weapons are useless against them. They simply absorb the attack and grow stronger. What about physical projectiles? Asked Security Chief Reed. Effective against their vessels, but they've evolved countermeasures. Energy fields that detect and vaporize incoming objects. Pike frowned. So hitting them requires getting close enough that they'll drain our ships first. Exactly. And Zor ships are essentially living organisms merged with technology. They're extraordinarily adaptive. Commander Raj looked up from his tablet. So why attack this colony specifically? The Naden don't possess particularly advanced technology. The Naden themselves are the target, Vega replied. Their biology produces complex bioelectric fields. For the Zor, they're essentially gourmet meals. Pike's expression hardened. Then we better arrive before the buffet's over. Options? The room fell silent as officers contemplated the seemingly impossible task. What if we used our disadvantage as an advantage? Suggested Engineer Torres. When all eyes turned to her, she continued. Deathworlders, right? That's what they call us. We evolved dealing with electrical storms, power surges, electromagnetic pulses. Pike leaned forward. Go on. Earth technology has always needed extensive surge protection and redundant systems. Our ships are designed to function even when main power is compromised. You're suggesting we let them drain us? Reed asked incredulously. Torres shook her head. Not exactly. I'm suggesting we give them something to drain. Something that looks valuable, but is actually a trap. As the concept took shape, Pike felt a spark of hope. Humans had always turned disadvantages into strengths. Their so-called Deathworlder status had pushed them to develop technologies and tactics unlike anything in the galaxy. We have 9 hours until arrival, Pike announced, standing. I want a working plan in 4. If anyone can outthink energy vampires, it's a ship full of humans. Around the table, her officers nodded with grim determination. None asked why they were risking their lives for an alien colony they'd never visited. The answer was obvious to any human, because someone needed help. The Relentless dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Nedon system, followed closely by the other 19 ships of the human fleet. The bridge fell silent as sensor data appeared on the main view screen. Xor vessels detected, announced the tactical officer. 17 ships in orbit around the colony. They're feeding. Captain Pike's jaw tightened. The Zor ships appeared. As pulsing, organic-looking structures, tendrils of energy extending down to the planet's surface. Life signs on the colony? She asked. Science Officer Vega worked rapidly at her station. Faint but present. I estimate 60% of the colony still survives, but their life signs are weakening. The Zor are draining them slowly. Like keeping livestock alive for continuous feeding, Commander Raj said grimly. Pike turned to communications. Any response to our hails? None from the Zor, Captain, but I'm receiving a weak transmission from the surface. They see us on their sensors. Put it through. The view screen showed a dimly lit shelter where dozens of Naden huddled together. Their translucent skin barely pulsed with color, indicating severe energy depletion. An older Naden moved closer to the camera. Unknown vessels, the translator interpreted his weak voice. Please, help us. The Zor have breached our inner sanctums. They're taking our younglings first. Pike stepped forward. This is Captain Mira Pike of the United Earth Fleet. We received your distress call. Hold on. We're coming for you. The Neden's eyes widened. Humans? The Council sent humans? We sent ourselves, Pike replied simply. We'll get your people. Out. Just stay hidden as best you can. As the transmission ended, Pike turned to her officers. Status on the Zor? They've detected us, Raj reported. 3 vessels breaking orbit to intercept. All ships, battle formation Delta, Pike ordered. Begin Phase 1 of Operation Thunderstrike. The human fleet divided into 3 groups, maneuvering with precision that belied their reputation as primitive Deathworlders. As the Zor approach vessels accelerated toward them, the humans didn't retreat. On the engineering deck, Chief Torres supervised the final preparations. Decoy systems online, she reported. Energy signatures calibrated to mimic maximum output. Deploy. On my mark, Pike commanded. 3, 2, 1, mark. From each human vessel, small unmanned craft launched into space, each broadcasting energy signatures identical to their parent ships. The Zor are taking the bait, Tactical announced. They're pursuing the decoys. Pike nodded. Begin Phase 2. As the decoys led the Zor interceptors away, the main fleet continued toward the planet, engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. They're draining the decoys, Vega reported. Energy signature spiking in the Zor vessels. Now, Pike ordered. The decoys simultaneously activated their final protocol. The energy being drained from them suddenly changed frequency, becoming erratic and unstable. On the view screen, the Zor ships convulsed as if in pain. It's working, Torres breathed. The modulating energy patterns are disrupting their ability to process what they've absorbed. Phase 3, Pike commanded. All ships, initiate kinetic barrage. Target their sensor arrays first. The human fleet opened fire with magnetically accelerated projectiles. Simple technology by galactic standards, but devastating when the Zor's energy shields fluctuated under the strain of processing. The corrupted energy. Direct hits, Tactical reported. The interceptors are disabled. Pike didn't celebrate. Status of the colony? The remaining Zor vessels have increased their draining rate, Vega answered grimly. They're killing the colonists faster now. They know we're a threat, Raj observed. Pike's eyes narrowed. Then we need to become a bigger one. All ships, full approach. Prepare boarding teams. Her officers looked at her in shock. Boarding teams, Captain? Raj questioned. Pike nodded firmly. The Zor expect us to fight like everyone else in this galaxy, at a distance, with technology. But we're humans. And sometimes, the best way to solve a problem is up close and personal. Boarding teams ready, Captain. Pike surveyed the soldiers assembled in the launch bay. 200 humans in specialized combat armor. Armed not with energy weapons, but with equipment that would seem primitive to most galactic citizens. The Zor expect us to fight like every other species, Pike addressed them. They've never encountered Deathworlders before. Let's show them why that's a mistake. The soldiers nodded grimly. Their armor, designed for Earth's harshest environments, had been modified with Torres's innovations. Completely mechanical systems, no electronics that could be drained. Remember, Pike continued, minimal power signatures. Hand signals only. Once aboard, the Zor sense energy? Don't give them anything to detect. Lieutenant Kane, leader of the boarding teams, stepped forward. We've got this, Captain. Earth trained us for everything from electromagnetic pulses to solar flares. Fighting without power isn't new to us. Pike nodded. Launch in 3 minutes. The fleet will provide distraction. As the boarding teams prepared, Pike returned to the bridge. Outside, the main Zor vessels hovered over the colony, their organic tendrils pulsing as they drained life energy from the Naden below. All ships, in position, Raj reported. Begin Operation Lighthouse, Pike commanded. Across the human fleet, massive spotlights activated, bathing the Zor ships in blinding illumination from multiple angles. Simultaneously, communications arrays broadcast on all frequencies, creating a cacophony of signals that the energy-sensitive Zor couldn't ignore. They're retracting their feeding tendrils, Vega observed, shifting energy to defensive systems. Launch boarding shuttles, Pike ordered. 20 shuttles detached from the human vessels, running dark with minimal power signatures. While the Zor focused on the overwhelming sensory assault from the fleet, the shuttles approached from the shadowed side of each vessel. Aboard the lead shuttle, Lieutenant Kane checked his mechanical compass. A technology so old that the Zor had no defenses against it. Approaching target, he whispered. Prepare for magnetic attachment. The shuttle's hull connected with the organic surface of the Zor vessel with a dull thud. Specialized cutting tools, powered by compressed air rather than electricity, began, slicing through the outer membrane. Inside the Zor ship, darkness and strange pulsing tissues greeted the boarding team. The air smelled of ozone and something else, something ancient and wrong. Kane signaled his team forward, their movements guided by chemically powered night vision goggles. Central chamber ahead, his second-in-command hand-signaled. The team moved silently through corridors that seemed to breathe. The Zor ship was partly alive, a hybrid of biological matter and technology unlike anything humanity had encountered before. In the central chamber, they found what Torres had predicted: a pulsing core of crystalline structures, storing the energy drained from countless victims. Kane nodded to the demolition specialist, who removed a package from her backpack. Inside was not an explosive, but a specially designed disruption device. Mechanical clockwork that would release a precisely calibrated mixture of chemicals. No electronics, no detonators, nothing the Zor could sense or drain. Meanwhile, aboard the Relentless, Pike watched anxiously as the distraction continued. "The Zor are fully engaged with our sensory assault," Tactical reported. "But they're adapting quickly." "Keep modulating the patterns," Pike ordered. "Don't let them predict—" The ship shuddered suddenly. "They're attempting to drain our main power grid," Torres reported from engineering. "Switching to isolated backup systems." Pike nodded. "How long can we maintain the assault?" 10 minutes at most before we need to pull back. Tell the boarding teams they have 8 minutes. Aboard the Zor vessel, Kane's team finished placing their devices around the energy core. The clockwork mechanisms were synchronized, set to activate simultaneously. "All charges placed," his team signaled. "Withdrawing to extraction point." As they retreated through the organic corridors, Kane noticed the tissues around them beginning to pulse more rapidly. "They've detected us," he hand-signaled. "Move faster." The team broke into a run as sections of the corridor began to constrict behind them. The ship was alive enough to defend itself, even if it couldn't sense their technology. 30 seconds. "To device activation," his second-in-command signaled. They reached the entry point just as the corridor sealed completely behind them. Outside, their shuttle waited, still magnetically attached to the hull. "Everyone aboard!" Kane ordered verbally now, no longer concerned about detection. "Prepare for immediate departure." As the last soldier entered the shuttle, the devices activated. Throughout the Zor vessel, the chemical reactions began. Not destructive explosions, but something far more devastating to energy beings. From the Relentless, Pike watched as strange, colorful reactions spread across the surfaces of the Zor ships. Where the chemicals mixed, they created endothermic reactions, literally freezing energy pathways within the organic vessels. "It's working," Vega breathed. "The chemical reaction is disrupting their ability to process and distribute energy." Boarding. Teams reporting success across all targets, communications announced. Shuttles returning to ships. Pike allowed herself a small smile. "Begin Phase 4. Deploy the ground teams. It's time to save those colonists." On the surface of Naden Colony, Epsilon, the Zor ground forces recoiled in confusion. The organic tendrils they had extended into buildings and shelters suddenly withdrew, responding to some distant distress signal from their vessels above. Inside the colony's main sanctuary, Ambassador Rel watched in disbelief as the feeding tubes that had been draining his people retracted through wall apertures, leaving behind only slime and the scent of ozone. "What's happening?" asked one of the younger Neden, 4 of his eyes blinking rapidly. "I don't know," Rel admitted, his skin pulsing weakly with hope chromophores for the first time in days. "But something has changed." The sanctuary's remaining sensor display flickered to life, showing objects descending rapidly from orbit. Not the undulating motion of Zor vessels, but the controlled descent of geometric craft. "The humans," Rel whispered. "They actually came outside the colony perimeter. 20 human dropships landed in precise formation. From each emerged squads of soldiers in heavy mechanical armor, moving with the efficient grace of predator species. Leading them was a human female whose armor bore additional markings. "Commander Voss, United Earth Fleet," she announced through a translator as her forces secured the landing zone. "We're here to evacuate the colony." The Neden sentries who had survived the initial attack emerged cautiously from their hiding places, translucent skin barely pulsing with life energy. "The Zor, they're still in the colony," one warned. "Hundreds of them." Voss nodded grimly. "We know. Our fleet is keeping their ships occupied, but we need to move quickly. Where are your people gathered?" As the sentries led them toward the main sanctuary, the human soldiers moved in formation, weapons ready. Unlike the energy weapons used by most galactic species, the humans carried projectile rifles and mechanical crossbows, primitive technology by galactic standards, but immune to energy draining. "Contact front!" called a forward scout suddenly. 3 Zor ground units rounded a corner ahead, floating, tentacled creatures that pulsed with stolen energy. They immediately extended feeding appendages toward the humans. "Fire!" ordered Voss. The soldiers' weapons discharged with deafening cracks, mechanical energy propelling metal projectiles at supersonic speeds. The Zor, evolved to defend against energy weapons, had no defense against kinetic impacts. Their forms shuddered and collapsed, leaking luminescent fluid. In the sanctuary, Ambassador Rel heard the unfamiliar sounds of combat growing closer. The remaining Naden clustered together, younglings in the center, adults forming a protective circle. "Is it more Zor?" someone asked fearfully. "No," Rel answered, moving toward the sealed door. "I think it's our rescuers." The massive door shuddered, under sudden impact, then again. On the third strike, the mechanical lock gave way, and the door swung open to reveal Commander Voss and her soldiers, some bearing wounds but all standing tall. "Ambassador Rel?" Voss asked. "We need to evacuate your people immediately." Rel stepped forward, his skin pulsing with astonishment. "You fought through the Zor? How?" "Their energy drain." "Doesn't work if there's no energy to drain," Voss replied, tapping her mechanical armor. "Old-school technology has its advantages." As the humans organized the evacuation, the Naden watched in stunned silence. These creatures, shorter than average galactic citizens but broad and densely muscled, moved with purpose and confidence unlike anything they had seen. "Why did you come?" Rel asked Voss, as they helped younglings board the transport. "The Naden have no alliance with Earth." Voss looked surprised by the question. "You sent a distress call. That's all the reason we needed." In orbit, the battle continued. The Zor vessels, crippled by the chemical attack, struggled to maintain cohesion. The human fleet pressed their advantage, launching waves of kinetic projectiles at the now vulnerable ships. Aboard the Relentless, Pike received Commander Voss's transmission. "First wave of evacuees inbound, Captain. Approximately 2,000 Naden, mostly younglings and elders." "Acknowledged, Commander. Status of the remaining colonists?" "We're organizing the second wave now. Estimated 8,000 still in the central sanctums. The Zor ground forces are in disarray, but regrouping quickly." Pike nodded. "We'll hold position as long as possible. The Zor fleet is damaged but not defeated." As if to emphasize her point, a massive energy surge emanated from the largest Zor vessel, a desperate attack that lashed out at the nearest human ship. The UEF Intrepid shuddered as its systems overloaded, emergency protocols immediately kicking in to isolate critical components. "The Zor are getting desperate," Raj observed. "That kind of energy expenditure is costly for them." "They're not used to defeat," Pike replied. "Keep up the pressure. We need to buy time for the ground teams." On the surface, Commander Voss organized the remaining Naden into evacuation groups as her soldiers held defensive positions against increasingly frantic Zor attacks. "They're changing tactics," her lieutenant reported. "Becoming more aggressive, less concerned with preserving energy." "They're panicking," Voss realized. "They've never encountered a species they couldn't drain." As the last transport filled with Naden colonists, Voss's comm unit crackled with Captain Pike's voice. "Commander, be advised. The Zor fleet is attempting to consolidate. We estimate 20 minutes before they can launch a coordinated counterattack." "Understood, Captain. Final transport launching in 5 minutes." As the last younglings boarded, Ambassador Rel turned to Commander Voss. "Your people risked everything for strangers," he said, his skin now glowing with gratitude chromophores. "The Council called humans Deathworlders, a danger to galactic society." Voss smiled slightly. "Living on a death world teaches you something important, Ambassador." "What's that?" "That survival means nothing if you don't use it to help others survive too." 3 weeks later, Captain Pike stood before the Galactic Council, her dress uniform, a stark contrast to the flowing robes and natural coverings of the assembled representatives. Behind her, Ambassador Rel and a delegation of Naden stood in respectful silence, their skin pulsing with vibrant colors of life and gratitude. High Counselor Ven addressed the chamber. "We have convened to formally recognize the actions of the United Earth Fleet in response to the attack on Naden Colony Epsilon. The official record will show that all 42,000 colonists were successfully evacuated with minimal casualties. The Zor fleet was repelled, with 14 of their vessels disabled or destroyed. The counselors murmured among themselves. The defeat of Zor forces was unprecedented in galactic history. Captain Pike, Ven continued, your methods were unorthodox by council standards. Pike nodded. Human methods often are, counselor. Yet undeniably effective. The council wishes to understand how your species was able to counter the Zor's energy-draining capabilities when all other attempts have failed. Pike glanced at Commander Raj, who stood at her side. Counselor, humanity evolved on what you call a death world. Earth's environment forced us to develop redundancies and alternatives for everything, including our technology. When one approach fails, we try another. When a system goes down, we have backups for the backups. But the mechanical weapons, pressed another counselor. Such primitive technology against a spacefaring species. With respect, Pike interrupted, effectiveness matters more than complexity. The Zor evolved to counter energy-based attacks. We simply used methods they weren't prepared for. Ambassador Rel stepped forward, his skin pulsing with formal speech patterns. If I may address the council, the humans did more than defeat the Zor. They demonstrated something many of us had forgotten. The chamber fell silent as the Naden continued. When danger threatened, the species you labeled Deathworlders were the only ones who came. They risked their lives without calculation of benefit. Their soldiers carried our younglings to safety while taking wounds that would kill most species. When I asked why they would risk so much for strangers, their commander said something I will never forget, because that's what humans do. High Counselor Ven's reed-like appendages swayed thoughtfully. Captain Pike, the term Deathworlder, was assigned to your species upon first contact. It was meant as a scientific classification. But perhaps we misunderstood its implications. Pike smiled slightly. Earth taught humanity hard lessons. Counselor, we learned that survival often depends on cooperation, not just competition. That the strongest societies protect their most vulnerable members. That sometimes you have to run toward danger to prevent greater harm. Counselor Tam, who had first suggested contacting the humans, addressed the chamber. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge species by their origins rather than their actions. The humans' death world didn't make them more dangerous to galactic society. It made them uniquely qualified to defend it. As the council session continued, diplomatic channels across the galaxy buzzed with news of the Zor defeat. Species that had lived in fear of energy predators for millennia suddenly saw possibility where there had been only dread. Later, in a private meeting room, Captain Pike conferred with Admiral Lind via secure transmission. The Council has requested permanent human presence in 3 more sectors, Pike reported. Apparently, Deathworlders make good neighbors in dangerous regions. Lind nodded, a slight smile on her weathered face. Funny how quickly perspectives change. 3 years ago, they wouldn't allow armed human vessels beyond our immediate territory. They still don't fully understand us, Pike observed. They see our weapons and tactics, but not the principles behind them. Give them time, the Admiral replied. Understanding across species barriers doesn't happen overnight. Pike gazed out the viewport at the glittering expanse of the galaxy. The Naden younglings gave our soldiers drawings before we departed. Pictures of humans standing between them in the darkness. They call us the Bright Ones, ironic for a species from a dimly lit death world. Maybe that's exactly why, Lindy suggested. We know how precious light is because we evolved in places where it wasn't guaranteed. As Pike prepared to rejoin her crew, she reflected on humanity's place in the galaxy. The Galactic Council had feared humans for their Deathworld adaptations, their physical strength, their aggressive potential, their unpredictable behavior. What they were only now beginning to understand was that those same adaptations had produced something else. A species that ran toward danger instead of away from it, that valued courage as highly as safety, that measured wealth not just in resources, but in lives preserved. A species that, when they heard a distress call from strangers, didn't hesitate to answer. The Deathworlders had arrived in galactic society, and the galaxy would never be the same.